Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. What I got for you today is the Ace of Cups as our bad news bear, as the obstacle, and then the Four of Cups as the opportunity. So, lots of cups, cups and cups. Let's get started. Ace. Um, so Ace is it's interesting. It's number one. It's the first. It's the first in a sequence. In some ways, it has, in some ways, it's related to not just all of the other aces, but also cards like the Magician. Let's say the first card in the major arcana, as well as Strength, La Force in the 11 card. It's like the second number one card. And then in another sense, I see it as being related to the Fool. And one of the interesting things with the Fool, particularly the Fool and the World, they're the two cards that seem to exist outside of the sequence of all the cards inside. Everything else is often pretty neatly divided into like a decimal format, tens, and uh, and then the Fool doesn't even have a number. It's like he's this total chaos, this total possibility that's at the beginning of the whole sequence, and then the world I think kind of serves as like a 10. It's the full accumulation, and also it doesn't really exist outside of the sequence, but it's 20. It's number 21, which kind of breaks the thing sticking to these groups of 10. But yeah, one way or another, I see the aces as looking at the neighboring cards here. Ace of Cups, in the way that I interpret the sequence of the tarot to travel, comes after the Ten of Swords. And the tens are these really closed, binding, rigid, highly organized states, where the the individual in question doesn't really play a role. They're not actively participating. They are consumed or overwhelmed, or they're just so organized by the governing force that they essentially don't have any individuality. The aces are kind of like the flip side. It's like a deus ex machina. It's like something out of nothing. It's the first appearance. It's the spontaneous appearance of some new force, and I think the Fool kind of represents that. It's it's everything all at once, and it's very chaotic, and the possibilities are endless because it's this beginning of a new thing. Anything could happen. It could go in any direction. Um, and as with all cards, this is both something that could be seen as a positive and a negative. So the Ace of Cups sort of exists like before before any of the other cards in the suit of cups start to detail and describe the journey of a person's emotional growth and emotional experiences. This is just the entrance into that. It could be like, in some sense, it's just like the birth of the individual, because you just begin your emotional existence. Nothing is happening yet. Anything could happen. It can go in any direction. Um, this could this could certainly be a negative experience. Um, when anything is possible, nothing is certain. And this could be a paralyzing or frightening prospect, especially if you realize that if something spontaneous and unpredictable and chaotic could happen once, well, maybe it could happen again and again and again. And confronting that is something that makes a lot of people almost want to check out of participating in life. If unpredictable events are guaranteed, and if no matter what amount of control you try and employ over your life, if random things are going to keep happening, some people get pretty discouraged. Like, well, what's the point of doing, of trying? What's the point of organizing anything? And with the Ace of Cups, in a negative sense, this could represent something like the the spontaneous, overwhelming appearance of some undesirable emotional state. So it could be, maybe you're overwhelmed with depression and you don't even know why. Maybe you're overwhelmed with some with like anger or something like that. It doesn't seem like there's any reason for it. It's coming out of nowhere. In a slightly more symbolically literal sense, it can be like relapse into alcoholism, let's say, right? Um, Particularly as brought on by some sort of unknowable force, where it's one thing if you if you understand why you feel a certain way, or if you understand why something happened, but this is just kind of the spontaneous explosion of this new presence of new emotions. um, Now, looking at the journey here, this is something has come. This is the Ace of Cups comes as a response, or as the next step of this, the overpowering orderliness of the Ten of Swords, when you are so consumed or dissolved into abstract ideas, thoughts, and I think I like to interpret the swords here as being blue, as being the color of cups. So it's ideas, it's thoughts about morality, culture, things that are, I think that all reason still essentially stems from uh, morals, you know, moral kind of. First, you have a moral belief, then you rationalize it with reason. So I kind of like how the swords are always represented here as being in that realm of feeling, and virtues, which I think um, come before the morals, right? So having been overwhelmed with too many of all these different ideas, all these different considerations, that it just essentially make the individual submit to, yeah, just being crushed under the weight of all these meanings and rules and things. It's like you get this spontaneous appearance of emotion, and not just the appearance of emotion, but it's it starts to register on the radar. All of a sudden, this is the appearance of like a shift of focus. Before, maybe you were really preoccupied with ideas, calculations, reasonings, and now you're starting to see that emotions can be a thing that could exist on their own without necessarily needing justification. Could be a dangerous thing if those emotions are going to be, going to be possessive, are going to lead you to act in irrational, volatile ways. But if you could see it as just the beginning of a new direction to focus in, the card following this is the the first contemplation of emotions, emotional stability, feelings, as being something that doesn't just happen to you on an individual basis, but as something that actually requires the context of another human being, right? So obviously there's a lot of emotions that we experience on our own, but some of the best emotions are the kind of emotions that um, require some sort of interaction with someone else, a mutual experience of emotions, like even something like watching a comedy by yourself and watching a comedy with someone else, maybe that you like, that has the same sense of humor. That's a radically different experience, right? So um, the danger here is being overwhelmed with an emotional state, but nonetheless, it does signal the right direction, I believe, to go in. It's just, the danger here might be to feel preoccupied. It might be tempted to try and sort of renounce or run away from the feeling or suppress it, to maybe go back to that suit of swords and to try and think things through rationally, you know, um, yeah, just sort of bury this feeling. But I think the ideal here, the thing to do here is to acknowledge that like this is going in a direction that will be, you know, um, will just be a really great. It's just a great new uh, set of experiences, a great new path to go on, right? That the beginning could be a little bit scary and weird. And then we got another cup card here for the opportunity. Um, Now, I don't recommend skipping over the Two of Cups, the Page of Cups, the Three of Cups, and just going straight to the Four as a solution to this. But this certainly implies it's the first it's the first balanced state of something along the lines of perfection. Particularly, this is the first cup card that relates to feelings that emotional states, feelings that feel like they're a human experience in some sense, that don't feel like they're this outside force of nature, you know. Um, if it's like the first owning up to feelings as being something that is yours, that you can maybe control. I really like the Three of Cups. It's these girls. I see it as them celebrating the first successful harvest. But even though it seems like such a joyous and nice card, like it's a really happy emotion, I still think that it exists on this very earthy, subconscious sort of plane. Like the emotion, the emotions depicted in the Three of Cups is a byproduct of the harvest. It's almost like the earth provides these fruits and vegetables, and in the process of providing those, it also provides these good emotions. The individuals depicted in the Three of Cups, I don't think, have the kind of emotional maturity to be able to create their own emotions. They're still reliant on the world to essentially, a favorable situation happens, great, now I can feel happy. I think the thing that the Four depicts really well is an individual who is sitting down, relaxing, meditating, surrounded also by this kind of, you know, earthly earthly bounty, resources, plants, nature. Sitting down, he's got these three cups that are like possibly these emotions that he already has. Maybe they're emotional states that are reacting to the world around him. And it seems like he's partially meditating on those. And then also there's this fourth one appearing out of nowhere. And I think this symbolizes the beginning of an individual's ability to not just dwell on the way you feel and interact with your feelings as this external byproduct of the world, but to also, will feelings into existence. And meditation, let's say, is one of these things that like you could actively do to create feelings. You could will a certain emotional state within yourself, which is pretty fascinating. There's a lot of people that don't know how to do that. There's a lot of people who don't, and it doesn't just have to be meditation. Even though I would kind of argue that most of the ritualized emotion controlling activities that people engage in are meditative in some aspect or another. But yeah, there's a lot of people that just don't have any active strategies on controlling or augmenting their emotions. Um, Even as simple as like just take a couple breaths, something really simple. Like that's still a way of actively augmenting how you feel, right? I think this card though does a good job symbolizing an individual who is meditating. Maybe they're focusing on a person on a specific kind of personal state, emotional state that they want to to experience, and then it's like it's appearing out of nowhere. They're spontaneously creating this mood, and the fours are one of those cards that symbolizes some sort of a perfect order. This is one of the very early sort of cards depicting an order or balance of some sort. But I think it's the first card that depicts an order that isn't just the byproduct of a balanced world. Like the Two of Cups here, it's not active, even though these individuals look pretty civilized. Um, I think this card, the two, is more better interpreted as almost like the kind of emotional balance that is the byproduct of humans coming together in the natural world, like almost more like animals, like the kind of emotions that we subconsciously bring up in each other. So something like if you find yourself acting politely with people because you're just an agreeable kind of individual, and you encounter other agreeable individuals and you start being very polite and nice to each other, it's like that's not unlike the four. That's not a product of an active will or desire. This is just what humans bring out in you. This is what you bring out in humans, right? This card could also represent like negative emotions. If you're a really aggressive, disagreeable individual and you bump into another person, all of a sudden all these emotions are going to come up, but it's not a byproduct of you choosing to feel a certain way. So even though there might be, you might find yourself in a world that's balanced emotionally in terms of you feel happy and warm, other people feel happy and warm, you feel angry and hostile and aggressive, other people feel hostile and aggressive. That balance isn't a byproduct of the will, whereas with this one, it is. And this card sort of the card that follows the Queen of Cups. The queens are they're the they're the penultimate managers of the suit internally. So unlike the kings or the knights, they don't really either look outside of the suit or even venture outside of the limits of the suit. But in terms of being able to manage what the suit symbolizes, emotions, feelings, cultures, morals, virtues, spiritual matters, feelings of that sort, the queen symbolizes the ability to perfectly manage that internal economy, right? It has its own limitations because obviously it's not looking outside of the system, but looking outside of the system also brings its own disadvantages. So this force certainly symbolizes a very important skill to develop as a human being, and that's the skill of being able to balance yourself emotionally by willing into existence feelings, by willfully turning your attention to the kind of things that the kind of emotional states that are going to be the most useful. Sometimes, I mean, this person's meditating, but also uh, don't discount the usefulness of knowing how to get yourself angry. Sometimes, particularly for highly agreeable people, you could get pushed around by society quite a bit. Sometimes in those situations, it's very useful you know to know how to get yourself a little pissed off. Like sometimes that's what you need to do, one way or another. It's how to interact. I think this card symbolizes the opportunities and benefits of becoming a more balanced individual in the world by getting good at or even mastering summoning up your emotional states for yourself and not relying on the world to do it. So I think that's a pretty good opportunity to focus on in the face of the negative aspect of the Ace of Cups. Spontaneous feelings arise, pop up out of nowhere. Sit down under a tree, reflect on those feelings, and then also reflect on what you could bring into the world, emotionally speaking, through mindfulness or meditation and consideration to offset that. In terms of the Marseille cards, I like the symmetry here in the Four of Cups. It looks nicely balanced. The sort of the four quarters of the world, or yeah, they're all keeping themselves balanced, and the ace pretty similar. There's no hand delivering it, so I think it more symbolizes the cup itself, and I kind of like how this one looks. It almost looks like some sort of a palace or a building, and I kind of like thinking of that as a reminder of like I like that it reminds me of the fact that the feelings are existing within this. They're housed within this building that is us, right? It's easy to think of. It's easy. It can be easy to think of feelings as things that are coming from the outside. Someone said something and I got angry, and it's easy to place that anger outside of yourself when you identify what you think the source of it was. But ultimately, those feelings still exist within ourselves, and I like to see this card as representing the highly complex structure that is our body, in the sense of the thing that contains all the different emotions that we can have. Um, and yeah, and it could feel like a very complex, hard to decipher structure. Some of the walls are really interesting. Like if you look at the one of the walls on the right side, it doesn't seem like geometrically sound. Like, is it is one part of it open? Is it is it kind of like almost like a cubist play on perspective? I kind of like how this, I think, it's a symbolic reminder of the, or like an MC Escher, those like staircases, all the really weird, strange loop staircases. I like how it kind of reminds me of that, like the realm of emotions isn't some it's not some Cartesian, like, parallel lines kind of world. It's a world where things cannot add up to each other. It can be complex and confusing. But yeah, that's what I got for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Bonk my like button, and as always, any comments get entered into a draw for a free one-on-one reading on Sundays. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.